Welcome to the Rebuilding of Venezuela podcast, business opportunities, the market, and the talent needed to make it happen. We bring you a dual perspective, the U.S. business lens and the inside view from Venezuela. Welcome to the Rebuilding Venezuela podcast, business opportunities, the market, and the talent needed to make it happen. I'm Alex Miranda, coming to you from the United States, and I'm joined by my partner, Ignacio, who's on the ground in Venezuela. Together, we bring you a dual perspective, the U.S. business lens and the inside view from Venezuela, as this country repositions itself economically. Each episode, we break down what's happening, what smart operators are doing, and where opportunity is forming, with a special focus on the talent that will ultimately determine who succeeds. Let's start with your Venezuela reconstruction update. Over the last few episodes, we've built a simple argument. The companies that win when this market reopens don't wait for certainty. They position early. And we've said the smartest early move is talent, hiring people who understand the market before everyone else gets there. Today, we're adding the other half of that argument. You can hire the best team in Caracas. You can build local relationships, local intelligence, local credibility on the ground, and you can still fail because the market doesn't know who you are. Positioning isn't just about who you hire. It's about how you show up. Every company entering a new market tells a story, whether it means to or not. The only question is whether that story is being told on purpose. Brand before boots on the ground. Not a logo, not a tagline. A clear, deliberate answer to a simple question. Who are we and why should this market trust us before we've done a single thing in it? Because here's what happens to the companies that wait. By the time they realize they need that story, someone else has already told it for them. A competitor, the market, the rumor mill. Capital moves fast. Talent moves slower. Trust moves slowest of all. And trust is the only thing you can't hire on day one. You have to build it before you arrive. Today, we're sitting down with Gabriela Pulido, a Venezuelan-American brand strategist who has spent nearly 30 years helping companies position themselves before they move into new markets across the US and Latin America. We're going to break down what it actually takes to enter a market like Venezuela the right way. Not the office, not the capital, the story that has to come first. Because the rebuild isn't just about who shows up, it's about who the market is ready to trust when they do. And that's your Venezuela reconstruction update. Our next guest, like most of the people we bring onto this show, is Venezuelan Gabriela Pulido. She built her career across Venezuela and the US. And today, she's the co-founder and president of Scalto, a brand strategy and growth firm based here in Miami, working across the US and Latin America. Over 30 years, she's helped fintech, financial services, and B2B companies position themselves to scale. Clients like Inswitch, FlexFunds, and Amerant. And she still runs a creative team on the ground in Caracas. But before we get into any of that, Gabriela, welcome. Tell us who you are and tell us your story.
Thank you, Alice and Ignacio. I'm thrilled to be here rebuilding Venezuela. That's one thing that the first time we spoke about, I'm all in. So who am I? I am a creative problem solver. I love to connect and I love to, create the spaces where the problems can be solved with branding and communications. So born and raised in Venezuela, mother of four, grandmother. We migrated to the U.S. 8 years ago. And having said that, I have built 3 companies, and serial entrepreneur, you would say, from all in the branding and communication side. The first one I sold, the second one is Scalto, and the third one Sunset. So I have all 3 events in my life. I love, and my passion is the power of a brand to create, to make the strategy or the business strategy for growth actually work. And in the corridor of Venezuela, Latin America, and the US, that's where I'm placed. And here in Miami, we're more on the fintechs and financial services in Caracas, like you said. I have my brand lab. So the brand lab is the creative brains. It's 20 people working nonstop and creating the big assets and the big ideas that we have. So looking forward for the conversation. How do we rebuild Venezuela with a brand?
I love that, Gabriela, that you have a team in Venezuela, and they may not be working always on a Venezuelan brand or a brand entering into the Venezuela market. However, I would like to think that if a company was to enter Venezuela, having people who are Venezuelan working on that brand would be just a tremendous asset. I could see brands trying to enter Venezuela using US teams to try to create the brand and the market positioning. And it just doesn't make sense to me. Gabriela, you've spent 3 decades helping companies position themselves when they enter new markets across the US and LATAM. When a company is thinking about Venezuela specifically, let's talk about brands. It could be fintech, could be a construction company, could be an oil and gas, whatever, consulting company. They want to go into Venezuela specifically. What's the first mistake you see them make?
Big mistake is you assume that with your same construct, your same message, your same narrative, you go into the space where you're at. You assume everybody is going to understand because you're a success, and say in Colombia, because we see a lot of companies coming from Colombia, from Ecuador, from Europe coming in, and they say, okay, I know this market. All the Latin Americans are the same. No. All the Spanish speaking are the same. No. So you need to understand why is it, and you said it at the beginning, why is it that somebody's going to trust you? What is the job to be done? What is the right or the big expensive problem you're solving for this person or for this community or for this company, in a sense? So in that sense, understanding the nuances, the narrative, or the things that are happening, say a brand, even the basic ones, the pronunciation of a brand in Spanish and English. That is something that you need to trust and you need to understand what is happening in the ground and understanding that. So I would say frame what's the problem you're solving for and for whom, and understand that persona, that person that you're solving it for.
That's interesting that you say that. Ignacio, I'd like to get your take on it because I'm sure you've seen a lot of brands try to come into Venezuela. You're there and they get it all wrong. They're a brand from Spain and they think, oh, the same messaging in Spain is going to work over there. What have
Listen,
you
Alex. Listen, Alex. I see the mirror of what Gabriela is describing for sure. I think that delegations today of investors are actually flying into Caracas every other week with enormous interest, but most of them are evaluating and not committing. That's what I'm hearing. That's what my friends are. Every time we get together, that's what we're talking. But then you take a look at what happened, Gabriela. Obviously, you know, this Monday, Cachea, the Venezuela fintech, announced a 100 million raise, one of the largest venture rounds in the country's history. So, you know, those investors, Alex, didn't bet on headlines. They flew down, met the team, walked the aisles of the partner stores and watched people check it out. So they flew down, met with the team, and at the end of the day, Alex, the companies winning here aren't doing the due diligence of Venezuela from a distance. They're introducing themselves to Venezuela in person and evaluating the market.
That's interesting that you say that.
That's
Gabriela, what do you think?
That's absolutely right. I mean, we have an asset, Ignacio, you and I, we have a team based in Venezuela, so we are boots on the ground. We understand what's going on. So when Gilinski says that he's buying Tio Rico, or the Grupo Gilinski is purchasing Tio Rico, or doing those type of things, we already have what legacy brands are doing and what brands are. I break it up into 3. So the legacy brands need to improve their messaging, improve their branding, improve their positioning to strengthen their position from the incumbents that are coming. The brands that left Venezuela, which after January 3rd, they're thinking of coming back, and how would they come back? And you see the comebacks of, say, Gilinski or others. I mean, we have Unilever, we have many of the multinationals that left that want to come back. how would they come back? Because remember, the Venezuelan audience and your clients missed you, but they replaced you with the substitutes that were there on the market. So we have that cohort of companies wanting to re-enter the country, and then we have the companies that would like to enter from the first place. And those are the ones you're talking about, Ignacio, the people that are doing the rounds, people are doing the tours. Yes, oil and gas is the anchor sector, but you see multiplier sectors as a financial. You see the health. You see, and even after the aftermath of the earthquake, which is a massive change in scenery and even the mood of Venezuela, what happening. I mean, things are happening. Like you said, Cachea raise happened a month after the earthquake. So things keep on going. All those three cohorts, like I said, the legacy, the brands that want to re-enter, or the brands that want to enter, they need to understand what it is that they're solving for, what it is that they're protecting, what it is that and their messaging needs to actually be in sync with that and understanding what the nuances are happening in Venezuela. Maybe I said too much, but that's...
No, it's perfect.
No.
I love what you said. And I'm kind of like a let's get into the nitty gritty kind of guy. You know, I have a branding background too, so I can't help but to think you get a call, Gabriela. Let's say it's one of those companies not known in Venezuela. They've never been there. They have something though to provide to Venezuela. What are the steps? What are the first steps with a company looking to get in there? What does the first couple of months of engagement look like with a company like that?
So for instance, what I'm doing with a fintech now, they want to go and purchase something in Venezuela. What I'm doing is like, what is your goal? What is it that you can bring? What's your ambition? So I'm based on ambition-driven strategy. Where is it that you want to go? And then I say, okay, what are the growth options that you have in Venezuela? So there's a huge gap, and Ignacio, you live that every day on the payment rails and what's happening, what's accessible, what's not, compliance with that. So in that space, you go in, it's like, okay, what's happening? Who are the key players? And what is happening with the consumer? This is B2B2C. What's happening with the consumer? And understanding what are the nuances, maybe the banking ecosystem in Venezuela, you have the lower end of the pyramid, most likely they're not even banking in the system already. So understand that, and then understand how you're going to get in. What's the right messaging? What's the right branding? What's the right positioning that you need to have? From then, you say, how do we, and within the customer journey, you're not known. Or if you do something partners with somebody, like somebody coming with Cachea has already been known. So cachear is a verb. So what's your right strategy to do it faster? So I would definitely do the beginning of the engagement is more on the strategy, even before. You can go the rounds, you can go visit, you can go, I mean, we've seen people doing the FOMO. I mean, they're like, oh, I'm missing out. I need to go. Like number one visit, number two visit, number three. Okay, sign here. Where is it? So I would certainly do the first at the beginning. It's like, what is it that you want to do? And I have from hotels calling, banks calling, from things. Okay, what is it that we need? Mind you, and answers in the field, we need everything now in Venezuela.
Everything.
So
everything is to build. Gabriela, you just explained it and presented it so well. I think that Alex Cachea is the perfect case study of what the right story should look like. As Gabriela said, everyone should be doing and evaluating the market. I think the investor from US did it and obviously saw the tremendous amount of interest and the need of helping this type of venture, which is Cachea. Alex, at the end of the day, Venezuelan collapsed from $15 billion to under $2 billion. So banks stopped lending, credit cards become relics. Cachea didn't position itself as an app. Alex, it positioned itself as the thing that brings trust bank into commerce. So Alex, 10 million account later, more than half the adult population using it. And when obviously, Gabriela, when the earthquake hit in June, they actually waived late fees and extended credit to affected families. So that's a brand built through action. You know, the biggest venture round in Venezuela history wasn't a bet on oil. It was bet on trust.
Well, we keep talking about Cachea. Cachea is a Venezuelan, it was built to solve a Venezuelan problem. It was already a Venezuelan brand. I'd like to hear, maybe I'm putting us on the spot here. I mean, not me. I don't live there. I don't know what brands have tried to get into Venezuela and have failed or have succeeded. But I'd like to hear of a unknown brand, had nothing, no business in Venezuela, but did something right, connected the right way, found the right problem to solve, and succeeded in entering into a new market that they had no business in the first place. That would be a cool, I know I'll ask some more questions here, but if a brand comes to mind, Ignacio, you live there, you've seen brands come in that, man, these people hit it right, and they weren't here before and now they're here. Or on the other side of the coin, a brand that absolutely fell on their face, tried to come in, spent millions of bucks, completely missed the target at all. Does anything come to mind for either of you on those?
Gabriela, what about the restaurants industry? What do you think about that in Venezuela?
I can't help to think about the stage where most of the multinationals left, most of the not McDonald's, but most of the other chains left. And what happened? What happened is like the entrepreneurial spirit in Venezuela, they raised, and there's tons of companies that level up. So now they have to compete where this cookies, Isabelitas or Isalitas, or they have to compete with the frozen yogurt or the yogurt that's established. So things that brands that don't, you have to take into account what happened in the evolution of that space that was left. So there's new brands of ice creams, new brands of toothpaste, new brands, not new for Venezuelans, but they were non-existent before 10 or 15 years ago. Now all these brands that would want to come back, Unilevers and P&G, that want to bring back their brands, and say, okay, there's a space that we need to level. Brands that I would say hit it off in terms of beer market, in terms of the sangrias. You see on the energy drinks. We don't want to go into that case, but that case was something that that brand leveled and created a movement. And in a way, those are the type of things that I would think. But more, Alex, on the brands that flourished because of they filled the space, and that space was filled. I see completely, when you go to the supermarket, you see completely different spaces. Even the supermarkets, Gamma, they managed to stabilize. They managed to get their own private label. They managed to do things. So I would say the winners are the brands that established, and they need to think what's coming, because Gamma would think that Walmart eventually would come.
Yeah, competitors.
Sodimax, what would happen if those would come into the business? So those are, how do you keep the loyalty of the brands because you've been there? And one nuance of Venezuelans, they would go, one, if Harina Pan is not there, the second establishment that would go, the second store that would go is no Harina Pan, I would get the similar one.
The similar one. Mm-hmm.
The loyalty, you're not going to go to a third store to buy the same brand. I mean, if it's not there, I'll buy what's there.
I might ruffle some feathers here, but I used to live in Latin America. I used to live in Peru, and I understood there was a elite high class, kind of a next little middle class, and then everyone else. Does a brand, and then you get these elite high classes, they travel the world. They know brands worldwide. They know what doesn't exist.
But Gloria was all public. It's for massive. It's for everybody. You mentioned Peru. Grupo Gloria. Leche va para Gloria. Everybody.
Gloria, I remember that brand.
Everybody, and we work with them on brand architecture. So So everybody would, that's a love brand, if you will. That's a brand that would fly, that would go across. Polar has beer. Polar has Harina Pan, has Primor, has different brands, and that goes to all the market. But nuances in Venezuela, the middle class. Remember, like 8 million people left the country.
Mm-hmm.
Who left? Most likely that middle class, that middle. And so the younger generations are the ones entrepreneurial, and the older generations are I mean, definitely not AI natives. So in that space, that's, I would say most of the brands that will come, they're aspirational, if you will, but the price point needs to go across to the lower levels as lower segments as well. I know
That's
Ignacio.
interesting.
Gabriela, you said it right. I 80% of my closest friends are, Alex, I have told you this, are entrepreneurials. All of them have created new businesses, and they have, as you said, as you mentioned it, Gabriela, they have pointed their products to the lower class, Alex, which at the end of the day is most of the people in Venezuela, like more than 80% of the people. That's the truth. It's 80% of the population. And that's where, if you target the product line to that type of population, you'll get it right.
Yeah, I understand. Gabriela, Ignacio, well, Ignacio more maybe. I'm a brand in the United States, and I do want to take a trip over there and see how Venezuela is, and that's maybe part of the experience of a brand trying to enter into the new market. But is it easy to travel there? How do I get to Venezuela? I'm not Venezuelan. Is that going to be a challenge for brands trying to enter the market, and you tell them, hey, let's take a trip to Venezuela. Why don't we go to Caracas and meet in my office with my creative team? Is it challenging to get to Venezuela if you're not Venezuelan?
It is. Gabriela, what do you say? I believe it is.
Break it down. As a person, yes.
As a person, yes. I'm talking about, I'm the owner of a brand. I want to go over there and see
and evaluate the market. Yeah.
What I would say, depending on the sector and the industry you're at, yes, there's a way to go. You can travel from the U.S. to Venezuela. Hopefully, direct flights were reestablished because we had American Airlines coming in, Copa, and different spaces. Yes, there's ways to come in, and you can go incognito. You can go like a mystery shopper and see if you want to go to the fast-moving consumer goods. You can see what's happening in the supermarket retail. You can see different spaces.
Is it safe? Is it safe?
I mean, is it safe to go to? I live in Miami, and so it depends on where you go.
Where you go.
It depends on where you go.
But I would say it is, Gabriela.
Yeah, I would say the hotels are packed, Alex.
Yeah.
The biggest hotel is Cayenne, or the smallest hotel, boutique hotel, but it's like high end. Cayenne is occupancy is like 90%. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting, and the type of people are coming. What I would go, if I would American, thinking of Venezuela, what is out there, I would definitely have somebody that knows the ground, that has boots on the ground. I can guide you towards what is that you can see, because yes, you can go to the Casco Histórico, the center of Caracas. You can see Simón Bolívar's how native. You can see many things, but not precisely what you want to see. So I would definitely go hand in hand with somebody, a partner, a local partner. There are many business brokers that are saying, if you need to purchase this now because later it's going to be more expensive. Real estate is going to be, it depends on your strategy. What is it, what you want to do, and the impact. I would always say people that come to our country, I would like to see that's purpose driven. So if we would go into renewables, we want to fix what's real expensive problem that we have in electricity. We want to solve for water. We want to solve for healthcare. And those are the spaces that I would definitely go hand in hand with somebody. But to your point, safe? Yes.
Okay. All right.
I go every other month. So again, I'm Venezuelan and I know my way around. But mind you that I was kidnapped. And despite that, I continue to go. I continue to be in a space where I want my team to flourish. I want my country to flourish.
Okay, that was a curveball there, being kidnapped in Venezuela. I didn't expect that to come out. Um,
Okay.
but maybe a topic for a whole, probably a book.
But that's the resiliency of Venezuelans. That's what you find. I mean, you need to, it's something that yes, and side, take a brief. If you're having something of the type of crisis in your, take care of it before, the sooner the better. That's one thing. But I took that and I rewired my brain so that I can establish and continue.
Yeah.
So that's the resiliency of Venezuelans. And it's going to happen after the earthquake, after January 3rd, after 27 years of this regime, or 30 years of this regime. It needs to happen.
That's what I love most about my relationship with Venezuela. As you know, Gabriela, I own a company. We staff people from Venezuela to work remotely for US companies. And I've hired people from many countries internationally to support my operations here in the US. And there's just something extremely different about the Venezuelan people. And even my own clients they notice something different between other countries and their Venezuelan talent. It's this resiliency. It's this fight. It's this want and this desire for the world to know who they really are, outside of the shadows of what's been created, the narrative that's been created about them. And I think that creates a very different type of an employee, a very different type of person that comes into your company. And that's where I want to kind of shift the conversation to, because to me, it's the most important part of the conversation. Venezuela is not Venezuela without its people, right? All the brands in the world could want to go there. If no one, it's about the people there, that are going to be interacting with that brand, pushing that brand. Um, Everything before this part of the conversation was really a setup, because now I want to bring it home to the Venezuelan talent. And I brought you specifically on this podcast because you don't meet a lot of people who have a whole team in Venezuela. It's kind of a new thing to develop a team in Venezuela that supports your operations globally. And I think that a brand can be perfectly positioned on paper to go into a market, but real people need to represent that brand. And I'm imagining that if a company was to enter into Venezuela, they would want to stand up some kind of team that is maybe a pre-entry team. Maybe there's, now your brand is there. Now you grow that team. Talk to me. I'm a company in the United States, Gabriela. You're working with me to enter into the Venezuela market. You have the creative team over there, but that company needs to start standing up someone over there that represents their brand, right?
Absolutely. I truly believe in the power of brands, and having the right team understand and create that brand for me, is key. I don't sell widgets. I sell ideas. I sell positioning. I create that type of space. So for me, talent is number one. The quality and the type and the creative space of Venezuelans, for me, has worked in past. With my previous companies, we did Mercantil, we did Carvajal in Colombia, we worked with Avianca, and this is a team in Venezuela. And you say, okay, I don't see it little, I see it amazing when you see the spark on their faces, like, I did that. And it's a matter of assurance. And we're fighting against learned helplessness, because that wave of resistance of being every time being on recovery mode, being on that space. No. The team, when you find the right team, these are people that are going all in. So when a company from anywhere, Europe, United States, coming into Venezuela, it's like, get the right team, get the right seed. And I would always say, for instance, when Hospital Ortopédico Infantil or when and any other, they would bring in talent to show how things would work. And then we trained the local people and they would excel and do better. So I would definitely bring your best person from abroad coming in, but get the right staff, the right talent, SWAT team in Venezuela or embedded team in Caracas, so that it can actually amplify and accelerate the process that you're coming in. In any industry, or we see that in oil and gas. We have so many experts fled our country in oil and gas that any which one coming in and doing a fraction, we elevate the production faster.
That's awesome. That you've brought up so many topics that I've been mulling in my mind here. When Ignacio and I first started this podcast, it was with this idea that there are companies in the United States that want to enter into the Venezuelan market. And the question I always ask myself is, who's the first hire in Venezuela? What does the profile of that person look like? For a company that hasn't even entered Venezuela yet, because it's different. Now you're entering the market. Of course, you have to stand up your team, your startup team in Venezuela. But before the startup team, who's the person? What kind of person this is that the brand doesn't exist there yet at all. Yet I need someone over there. I mean, in my mind, I think that's the thing.
I would definitely, and to your point, I know where you're heading. The typical path would go, let me go to legal, because that's going to take forever, and go for the legal department to establish the company and all that space. I would go with the strategist. So there was an agency that wanted to re-enter Venezuela, and they came through us, through Scalto. And it's like, the market, the drill, who's a lawyer, who's this, who's that, and we need to this account, we need to take care of this global account in Venezuela. So they came through us. Once they were established, boom, they're on the ground. So that's an easier path as opposed to going and doing everything yourself and getting and excited about that. And it's gonna get you're gonna find. It's Venezuela. You're gonna find things. They're gonna show up.
Gabriela, and it's interesting that you say that. Actually, there was these twins that approached to me like 2 months ago before the World Cup, that they wanted to enter the real estate industry. They were Venezuelan, but they have left Venezuela back in 2012, and they didn't know who to recruit as a starter. So I started, researching and see who was worth it inside my close friends. And at the end of the day, the one that I picked was someone that knew exactly what Gabriela just said, someone that knew legal, Alex, the legal things that goes in here when creating a company here in Venezuela, someone that knows very well the finance industry and the finance aspects that goes when you are here doing business in Venezuela. And thanks God, Alex, we picked the right one. And Gabriela, I have talked to him every other day, and he's telling me, Ignacio, as of today, I'm an octopus. I'm doing everything. These guys wouldn't do anything without me. So yeah, it's Alex. I would say that's someone that knows very well. And Gabriela, this friend of mine had a marketing agency here in Venezuela. So, and the marketing agency is not going good, but he was on the legal and finance aspect within the company, and I said, "This is the guy. This is exactly the guy." And it worked.
You need an orchestrator. You need a strategist. You need somebody of that sort, and a connector. Someone
that knows contacts. Yeah,
it depends. It depends. Yeah, and you have to be very careful. Given that you're coming from the U.S., there are restrictions, there are spaces that you can't get. You have to be careful who do you contact and who do you do.
Yeah.
You bring up, what I'm talking about.
You bring up a good point here, Gabriela, and which is that, and actually, Ignacio, you brought it up too. I'm thinking, if I'm a U.S. company, what makes sense to me is hire a marketing company in Venezuela to help me enter that market. And I think that actually might be a mistake, because they're in there. They're not over here and over there. And I think a company, Gabriela, like yours, is the perfect merger of what you really need. You need ground presence here, outside of the bubble of what's happening over there, but also presence over there. I think what you've created at Scalto, I think it's you may or may not have done this on purpose. You may or may not have had the vision for this from the beginning, but I think you specifically are positioned in the perfect way to be able to help U.S. companies enter into the Venezuelan market the right way. And if you had to give one first move this month to a company that is thinking about entering Venezuela, what would that one key secret be?
Will call us. That would be.
Así mismo.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
There's so many angles to this question that I would certainly stand up and I want to listen. I want to hear what are the ambitions are. I can say what the opportunities I see. I can certainly, things that I don't do, I direct that attention to legal, to the different spaces, but find the right person that can navigate you, can steer you towards your ambition. That's one. Alex, how do you explain rumba to American?
Party?
And it's not the same as rumba.
Okay.
So una rumba, and you need to translate. You might be lost in translation when you go. And granted that you have that same circumstances in Spanish. If you go to Colombia to a meeting and you go to Venezuela to a meeting, they're completely different.
Completely different.
Room. So you need to have somebody that reads the room, that steers you to that direction. That would be like my first position. I mean, then my motto is lo que no se comunica no se sabe. What's not communicated is not known. So once you're established there, you need to communicate what you're actually clear with the message that has a resonance within that market. But I would go the first stage first in terms of understanding who, what, and it doesn't need to take a year. I mean, we're talking about weeks. We're not talking about years and things that can actually connect. Again,
that's good.
Everything needs to be done. Everything it's not up for grabs, but everything needs to be transformed. Like you say, rebuilding Venezuela is going to take many, many fronts.
And smart companies will do what you're saying, which is you need consulting before you pull the trigger on anything. And I think that was smart advice, is get yourself the right consultant. Gabriela, before we wrap up, if I pull the thread through everything that you just walked us through, here's what I would say are the takeaways. The positioning has to come before the boots on the ground, and whatever positioning you have right now that you think will work in Venezuela because it worked in Colombia, it's not true. And Venezuela has to be thought of completely differently. By the way, vice versa. Whatever you thought worked in Venezuela won't work in Colombia. So it's true when you're branding.
Exactly.
I would even argue whatever you think is going to work in Caracas might not work in Maracaibo. It's probably even regional. But generally speaking, you're going to have to create a new brand story when entering into the Venezuela market. Boots on the ground matters. Getting building a team over there that understands your brand and can live and love your brand over there is going to be absolutely essential. You can't be a ghost brand, just enter in. You're going to have to form a team out there And of course, before all of that, you're going to have to get the right consulting. It'd be good if it was industry specific consulting. So thank you, Gabriela. That's it for this episode of the Rebuilding Venezuela podcast. If you got something out of this conversation, follow us wherever you listen. We've got more episodes breaking down where the opportunity is in Venezuela's reconstruction and the talent that will determine who captures it. Our mission is simple: to be the bridge between global opportunity and Venezuelan talent as the country rebuilds. And if you're someone building towards Venezuela, a company, an operator, an investor, and you'd want to be a guest on the show, reach out to us at rebuilding.virtrify.com. Until next time, this has been your Venezuela Reconstruction Update. Thank you, Gabriela.
Thank you,
Thank
Alex and
you.
Ignacio.